And a good Tuesday afternoon to you. Welcome on in. It's lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar and driven by Mungandass St. Louis Acura. I am Joe Roderick, joined alongside, as of this Friday, the newest member of the Missouri Broadcasters Hall of Fame, Mike Claiborne. Claibs, what's going on?
It's all good. All good. Watching some better baseball. The playoffs are underway in both the NBA and the NHL. It's kind of one of my favorite times of the year because now, as we get deeper into baseball, we're starting to see teams kind of rise and some fall. But in the playoffs in both the NBA and the NHL, this is one of my favorite times. The auto racing. I mean, I was riveted to the TV this weekend, watching the Grand Prix at Monaco. Watching the 600, and then watching the playoffs in both the NHL and the NBA. Yeah, this is a good time. Good time for me.
You have rivalries with Cardinals Cubs this past
Yeah.
weekend. You have, as you mentioned, the Eastern Conference Finals, the Western Conference Finals. Not much of a history between those organizations, but they're not close right now. But still, you have fans going up against each other for that. But Claibs, last night, late afternoon on Memorial Day, something came about that brought the entire world together as Bob Nightingale tweeted that Angel Hernandez was retiring from umpiring baseball effective today. We haven't heard the announcement yet, but we expect it to come before games start later. And it's just one of those moments where the whole world just joins in and rejoices over a common cause.
You're right. I mean, there's not a person outside of Angel Hernandez's family that doesn't think this is a great move. And I don't, and the thing is, maybe his family might even, say, well, wait a minute. That means he might be around here more. And I'm going to say this on real talk here. Angel Hernandez is one of the nicest umpires, one of the nicest people I've ever been around. Very cordial. What I've seen him do with kids and charities and things of that nature and how friendly he is to young people. He's one of those guys when he gets to the ballpark, he's shaking hands with ushers and the clubhouse attendant, you name it. He is really a good person. Okay. Mm-hmm. And at some point, somebody thought he was a good umpire because he wouldn't have gotten a job. He had his bumps in the road. There's no question about it. But as a person, I have nothing but respect for the man. But as an umpire, I'm disappointed that he's been involved in so many plays and so many things that have created this big aura about him that has made it, as you said, it's a global feeling. I mean, the whole world is like, yes, get rid of him. And that's unfortunate.
2 years ago, you and I did a show with umpire Joe West, and I remember the season that he wrapped things up. I mean, he had his career, the record-breaking game against the Cardinals up in Chicago, and as he ended his career of umpiring, you saw people posting their favorite Joe West memories, things of arguments and times where maybe he got himself involved a little too much in a game, but you never really saw the highlights where this was a terrible call that he made. And this is why, the argument happened, and this is why the thing exploded. You are just seeing constant one after another highlights of Angel Hernandez just missing strike three calls by 6 to 8 inches and not getting rules right, or just really bad missed calls. And that's kind of the difference between, when you talk about two. I don't know what the right word to compare the two of them, but really just, well-known umpires and, guys that are the faces of were the faces of their profession for so long, at very different paths those two took.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Because one of the things, Joe West knew the rules better than anybody. Okay. I wouldn't say Angel knew them as well. He just didn't enforce them like Joe would and some other umpires. Because, we talk about balls or strikes. He was bad on the bases too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so there are a lot of things that really kind of surmise his career with regard to his skill set. Now, here's a question for you. Now that Angel is gone, who's going to be baseball's new whipping boy umpire?
CB Buckner or Laz Diaz?
I asked this question to a few people already this morning, and CB's name is the one that comes up most.
Yeah.
Another one, I believe Jerry Lane is a name that's come up quite a bit. Laz Diaz, another really nice person. I mean, I saw him last week, and I mean, he's very, 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 very nice man. Uh, and I don't know. I just think Laz physically can't get around. I
Yeah.
don't think physically, if you watch him, it looks like he's got on a pair of tight shoes, man. And it just really seems like he struggles physically to move around. And therefore, I don't think he gets a good look at strikes in the zone.
Yeah.
So okay, I think the going sentiment is that CB should be next. I think CB's too young for them to get rid of in that manner. But I'll tell you this. I'll tell you a book I would read. If Angel Hernandez wrote a book about his career and the things that he dealt with on and off the field, I'd read it, because he was subjected to a lot of things that had nothing to do with umpiring. Being Cuban and that whole ordeal of going through that and probably being passed over, maybe when he was a better umpire and he was being passed over as a crew chief, because that's how this whole thing got started. There were some guys that were becoming crew chiefs who didn't look like him. And he was the guy to say, well, wait a minute, this is wrong. He went to court, didn't win, but he put it out there where there have been more people of color, be it Latin or African-American, that are now crew chiefs than ever before. And Angel had a lot to do with that.
And he also, I think, showed just how strong the umpires union is over all these years, too, keeping that job year after year after year. So another thing that he kind of put the spotlight on when it comes to the game of baseball.
I agree.
When you look at kind of looking ahead, because I guess Rob Manfred last week said that it doesn't look like 2025 we're going to have automated balls and strikes, but it does seem like it's coming. It does seem like it's by 2030 at least. Let's just throw that year out there and say that it's on its way. When we do get to that point, what is that going to do to our perception of umpires like an Angel Hernandez, like a CB Buckner, who a lot of their mistakes seem to come on balls and strikes, and that's why I view them as being bad at their jobs?
You know what? I don't know how that's going to sit, because I think the reason why we don't have the balls and strikes system in place yet is because it's not refined to the point where this thing isn't designed to make those guys look bad. It's designed to make sure you get it right. And I think there's still an element of the game that, I think pitchers are going to have to adjust. Hitters are going to have to adjust. And what they perceive a strike and what they perceive as being a strike may not be the case anymore. It may be a ball, or what you think is a ball is going to now be a strike. And I just think we're going to have to push a reset button on how we as players, broadcasters, pitchers, you name it, how we view the strike zone. And I think it's going to have a different look than what I think people think.
The Cardinals yesterday played in Cincinnati. Claibs, you were out late on Sunday at Busch Stadium, along with everybody else involved with the team and the media. An 8:40 start time for a Sunday night game that's supposed to start around 6, and saw reports that the Cardinals didn't land in Cincinnati till about 3:15 in the morning,
right?
And then having to turn around and play the afternoon game.
So take this into account. You landed at 3:15.
Yeah.
So bus ride to the unloading, bus ride to hotel. Let's make it a half hour, just for giggles. So now you check in. You're wired. And who goes straight to bed. And oh, by the way, you got to get right back up in the morning. I would imagine there was no batting practice yesterday. And you just go right to the park and you play. Now, some people can do that. Others, because they're all creatures of habit, really might struggle. I expect the Cardinals to be a lot more effective today and tomorrow than they were yesterday.
Oh yeah, afternoon game followed by a night game. They get a little more rest yesterday. I'm sure that's one. If we're talking 3 weeks ago and they lose that game 3-1, we're all sitting here going, another one again. It's winning seems to cure a lot of that. You win 10 out of your last 12, and then you go into a game like yesterday and you lose 3-1. And now we sit here and we go, yeah, you know what? They were probably tired. They traveled 3 weeks ago. We don't give them that benefit of a doubt, do we?
No, you don't. No,
Yeah.
I agree.
Eh,
It's just, and the whole rain thing is just it really it started. I think we had 7 hours of rain delay last week. If it was 2.5, it was 5+ hours going into Sunday night's game. And that rain delay was 2 hours and 36 minutes. So we had over 7 hours of sitting around, and it can wear on you after a while. And if it
mhm.
go to the point where Stubby Clapp came up and sat in on the rain delay on our broadcast Sunday. He sat there for maybe a half hour on the air with us talking about, what players do and his career and what he did as a manager. Who, by the way, I think Stubby Clapp would make a very good manager for someone. If you ever have a chance to talk to him, because he managed in the minors, he won in AAA. He's done a lot of things in his career. But if you listen to him and how he prepares and how he communicates with players, Stubby Clapp can manage for me. He'd be in that same Skip Schumacher category as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, the rain. I can tell you this. I mean, just at a lower level, 7 hours. That's a lot of just sitting around for guys that you mentioned are creature of habits. I could tell you a lot of people not at the Cardinals level, youth baseball has been hit really, really hard with that. I think the league that we're in has about over 200 games canceled already due to the rain, and you got to make that up at some point, or at least try to get all the money out of that
Yeah,
that
I agree.
gets put into it. So it's going to be a busy June for a lot of people.
Well, let
Cardinals
me ask
though,
you this.
yeah,
Let me ask. That's interesting. You bring this up. So with all these makeup games, now they play 7 innings, right?
it's an hour 50-minute time
Okay.
limit, so it usually hits the time limit before 7 innings. Yeah.
So will you see them to save some of these kids? Will you see them maybe play 5 innings?
I don't. I think that a lot of times if you end up playing 7 innings at a lower level, say 12-year-old or younger, maybe you can even bump it up 13, 14-year-olds. If you're playing 7 innings, that means you have two pitchers out there that are throwing a lot of strikes and not throwing many pitches. What happens is when you get 60 pitches through 2 innings, or you're in the third inning, the kid reaches 60 pitches, and you got to go out there and take them out, then that's when you're really starting to,
Right. The games
yeah,
start to drag on.
yeah,
It's
that's
kind of
when
like
it's starting to drag
spring
on.
training games after the sixth inning
Yeah.
in spring training when guys come out wearing 93 on their jersey. You're going to be there an extra 20 minutes thanks to them and their
Yeah.
inability to throw strikes.
So that's kind of that's kind of how I look at it. I mean, the kids are throwing, yeah, if you're only playing 5 innings, but your pitchers are still throwing a lot of pitches. But again, it just kind of depends on coaching, depends on the parents as far as what they're having their kids throw at that age, because there's some 11-year-olds out there that think that they're throwing a curveball, and that's not safe for anybody at the when that's happening.
No, well, they shouldn't be throwing curveballs
No,
at that age.
no, but they still think they do, because they think that they're the next Adam Wainwright out there dropping a 12-6. Um, by the way, so I know you were working on Saturday, but Adam Wainwright was on the call for
Right.
the Cardinal game. Did you have a chance to catch up with him
Oh
at
yeah,
all?
we talked. As a matter of fact, he's going to be in our neck of the woods next Friday night, and so he's trying to figure out what if he can get there in time to be at the ceremony, because he's on stage. He said, "I go on last, so maybe I can swing through there because they're right down the road from us."
That's out in the Ozarks.
Yeah, he's in
Nice.
Springfield.
Yeah.
So he said, maybe let me see what I can do. He said, because I don't go on till late, so who knows?
And then he's back here, I think, next weekend too for the for whatever the car race is in St. Louis.
Yeah, the deal over the Worldwide Technology
Yeah, yeah.
Raceway. Yeah.
Is it the happy,
No,
go happy,
gosh,
stay happy?
it's something, but it's a really big event.
You know what? Hey, if they sponsored Claibs Online, bet we'd know the name then.
Yeah, I know. But it's a really big event. I mean, because you have the truck
Oh, it's gonna
series,
sell out. Yeah.
you have the NASCAR, and then I believe you have the Indy racing too, don't you?
Yeah, it's
Was
a
that?
whole weekend
Yeah.
of stuff that they do. Absolutely. But as we mentioned, Cardinals win 10 out of their last 13 after yesterday's loss. Is there anything that you're seeing different? I mean, I know the hitting's getting a little better. The Paul Goldschmidt's not 0 for 40 right now. Mason Wynn, Alec Burleson are the two stars of the offense at the moment. Is there anything that you are seeing that's making this different?
More controlled at bats, where guys they've always had a game plan. I mean, it's not like I just think they're more relaxed in the batter's box. And the fact that the bottom half of the order, bottom portion of the order, are a little bit more productive. Mason Wynn, and you and I talked about this way, way back, and everybody was concerned. Well, we don't know if he can hit or not. And remember, I always felt he could hit. He hit at every level. What he was going to hit, I think, was a little bit of a surprise. My concern is making sure you can keep him healthy. Make sure, because he's going to play more games this year than he's ever played in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to make sure you get him some days off. He's playing hurt a lot, and that's a very demanding position. I think it starts with him on what I've seen, his consistency. Everybody's not trying to swing for a home run. Guys are going the other way. You look at what Burleson and Donovan are doing, going to left field with a lot more regularity. Those are the little things that I see. From a pitching standpoint, the bullpen's been lights out. The back end guys, my concern is, are they going to be overused? So you have to find that next group. And as I said to you before, this has got to be an 18-man pitching staff, where you have your 13 on the roster, but you better have 5 other guys that you can move in and out, whether they're in Memphis or whether you make a deal for them or whatever. You cannot go through an entire season with this one staff. And the guys you bring up have to be able to contribute. They just can't sit out there. They got to be thrown in the fire. I'd still be looking for a veteran pitcher somewhere along the way, because I don't think this 5th starter thing, you have it going tomorrow. I'm of the belief that you'll see 2 guys combined for the start. And you'll probably see Palante. To be honest with you, I'd like to see Palante and Liberatore start tomorrow.
Yeah. And that would put Liberatore back in that bullpen role where he was excelling earlier in the season, and see if you can recapture some of that magic. You still have 3 weeks before Steven Matz is expected back, and that's not a guarantee. And that's not a guarantee for him to be back in those 3 weeks when
and
we're seeing effective. It right, and also being effective. So at some point, I think we have to start wondering what's going on with Zach Thompson down in AAA.
Good question. Nobody seems to have an answer.
And he's pitching. I mean, the numbers would justify him being brought up.
Perhaps. I'm just really leery about what is he right now? What is he, a starter? Is he a reliever? If he's a starter, then what's he going to be throwing, and what's his velo going to look like? I mean, there's a lot of question marks behind his name. And when you think about the fact that if he wasn't a 1st round pick, they'd probably be looking at some other options with him, like moving him. So I think but he's a good point you make. I mean, he's an X factor. He could be one of those 5 on the staff that we're going to need.
I mean, to fill in for the 5th starter, it seems like it's been a no-brainer for the last several starts. And we've gotten Matthew Liberatore and now Palante. So where it seems like it's, hey, he was a starter to start the season. He's down in Memphis starting. Let's put him back in there. No, he's not. Okay, why? That's a big question there. Kenyon Middleton supposed to be making his return back to the team soon. Ryan Helsley had a rough weekend, still picked up 2 saves, but probably the worst that he's been hit since opening day.
Yeah, but here's the thing about that Ian Happ, man. I don't know why we even pitch to him anymore. I mean, if he hit some balls this weekend off of Helsley, one they kept in the park, but that other one he hit on Sunday night was as long, I think 440 feet, but it was a big one. I think, again, I go back to the fact you can't use them as much. You have to give these guys more than a day off, and I think that's something you have to be conscious of. And, the other thing is you get some pitchers that have fallen in love with throwing a pitch with such regularity that hitters sit on it. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to switch it up. And that was the one thing I was anxious to see with Assad on Sunday. The reason why he's 4-0 is because of the fact that, he didn't have a routine. He didn't have a pattern to follow. And he was just throwing things at a whim, and he was getting away with it. And he was getting away with it against the Cardinals until Goldschmidt ran into him. But overall, I think that some guys get a little pitch happy on certain pitches that they feel comfortable with, and players sit on it. So I would like to see, we have an off day on Thursday. If you can go through tomorrow and use just 2 pitchers, that gives your bullpen 2 days off. And if you get a bullpen 2 days off, then I think you're going to look at some guys that are re-energized and recharged and go out and do some damage. You don't want to be the San Diego Padres of a couple of years ago, where their manager kept going to them and going to them and going. Andy Green, I believe it was. And by July, he didn't have anything. He was done. And that was a really good team offensively, but they had no bullpen.
Are you concerned at all with Sonny Gray after his last 2 starts, just coming out when he did in the games?
Well, the first one, he acknowledged that maybe he was gassed a little bit. I don't know if there's been an official announcement on why he came out. I know why, but I don't know if it's been official, so I'll just let it go with that. Am I concerned? No, I think that from a precautionary standpoint, it was the right thing to do. I don't think he's going to miss a start. I think he'll be okay. But I think Sonny Gray knows Sonny Gray better than any of us in knowing what his limitations are. There are very few, but the ones that are the ones that you say, okay, we'll pump the brakes.
This is Lunch with Claibs and Joe. A lot of baseball talk here in the first 20 minutes of the show. If you missed any of it, you can catch the podcast later on today when it gets posted up on Claibs Online, wherever you find your podcasts. We are brought to you by the folks at Gray Bar and also Munganast St. Louis Acura. Claibs, we were just out there recently at 13720 Manchester Road and saw all of the new cars they had there on the showroom, saw the filled lot that they have as well. And you can do the same thing, or you can go online to stlouisacura.com. And Claibs, we even talked to Peter Munganast a little bit about everything they have coming out there.
We had a good visit with Peter, and he's excited about some of the new cars that are coming in. And I think he's even more excited because they have a great selection, whether it's new or pre-owned. And I think that's one of the issues, that when you look around, not only do they have selection, they have good pricing. They're very creative with structuring. So there's no reason to look around too long. I think what they have on both sides of the river is going to probably fit most people's bill. All you have to do is give them a chance. As a matter of fact, when we're done with this, I have to call Jamie because I'm going to rent a car this weekend. You know, they have rental cars as well. So, and you'll get maybe a better deal in a lot of cases than what you would with some of the more customary facilities who rent cars out.
The rental only available at Alton Toyota, Munganast, Burkhardt, Alton Toyota. You can find them online at altontoyota.com. A good way to plan your summer vacation. I know I have a few baseball tournaments coming up where I will be renting either a minivan or one of their bigger SUVs to make sure I can haul everything to where I need to go. We will take a break. When we come back, some basketball news and notes right here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.
Back here, Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on Claibs Online, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganast St. Louis Acura. And Claibs also brought to you by the Missouri Athletic Club.
The MAC is where everybody seems to want to hang out these days, especially at the summertime with all the activities they have going on around the place when it comes to social environments, great dining areas. They have pools, they have tennis courts, they have everything you want, along with a great atmosphere. And if you haven't had a chance to check them out, just go online and check out all the things that they provide, including golf around the area. So there are a lot of things the MAC is doing these days the right way, the fun way, and perhaps your way.
Claibs, yesterday news came out in the morning. The passing of NBA Hall of Famer, basketball Hall of Famer, Bill Walton passed away at the age of 71. They said after a long battle with cancer that I don't think was very publicized over the last few years.
You know, it was interesting. I was watching Roxy Bernstein who's been the voice of the Pac-12 for a number of years, and he did a lot of basketball games with him. So he was signing off for the final time for the final event for the Pac-12 in a baseball. And he went through this whole thing and thanking different people. And then he took some time out to talk about the impact that Bill Walton had on him. And the way he talked about him made me think there might be something going on here, but I never thought it was that close to the end for Bill Walton. And again, I would have never known about that was something was going on had I not watched that one clip of Roxy. And I reached out to him yesterday. Haven't heard back from him yet because I know they were close. I don't even know where to start with Bill Walton. When you think about prodigies, came from an athletic family. His brother Bruce played in the NFL, played for the Dallas Cowboys. He was a guy that had a speech impediment growing up. He couldn't talk. And, to hear him now, all those years later, it's kind of fascinating. But an incredible player. When you think about guys that came out of UCLA, he and Kareem probably the two most storied athletes as far as their runs there. But there wasn't anything he couldn't do. I mean, he's in my class of top 10 all-time centers. And I go back and forth on some. So let me give you my top 10. No specific order.
Just centers. Just centers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wilt, Kareem, Shaq, Hakeem, Moses Malone, Artis Gilmore, Bill Walton. Who am I missing here?
Is Tim Duncan a power forward or a center?
Tim Duncan. I'm at 8. Gosh, who's the other? Because I always get into this, and I always have one guy that everybody, well, what about this? He's not in my top 10. Now I can't even think of top 10. But you get my point. Well, Bill Walton could do anything. I mean, he was just a talented player, one of the best passing centers you'll ever see. Really understood the game, and I think John Wooden had a lot to do with that. One of the things about John Wooden didn't coach dumb players. You think about Kareem, who was just as smart about the game as Bill Walton was, but it was nothing he couldn't do. The problem was he was injured. He had foot problems from day one that really shut down his career, but he had a ton of injuries. But when he was right, man, he was a really good player. He kind of had a second coming with regard to his broadcasting career. Some people loved it. Some people didn't. That team he had in Portland the year they won, the only time they ever won, he would go down the floor and he would be doing this, letting them know, let's pick up the pace or whatever. And Brent Musburger called him the big mountain man, the big redhead. And that kind of stuck because his hair was a little longer. And then he really let it grow. It was probably as long as yours. I
don't know about that.
Had this real scraggly beard. But man, when he was healthy, it was nothing he couldn't do. And there's a couple of documentaries. There's one ESPN did that I think if you want to really know Bill Walton, this is a really good piece. And he has a book out. He had a book out that's a very, very good, but really one of the true statesmen of the game. He was his own guy. He danced to a different drummer. But, when you think about his skill set, man, his skill set was as good as anyone who's ever played the game.
You mentioned the second coming that he had. It's kind of Madden-esque, because there's a whole generation of people that only know John Madden as the commentator from the video game. They had no idea that John Madden was a Super Bowl winning football coach.
The youngest coach to win.
Yeah. So Bill Walton is kind of similar to that, where people have no idea how good he was at UCLA. People don't know what he did when he was on the court. They just know him as this deadhead doing games on ESPN or for the Pac-12, doing, commentary for basketball, and then just kind of rifting off into his own thoughts and just going with it. And then that ending up on social media and you hearing the highlights of it.
No, that's a good point you make. The UCLA teams were just out of sight, man. I remember when their winning streak got snapped by Notre Dame, and they ended up losing to North Carolina State in the semifinals that year. And that was when David Thompson, who nobody ever seen anybody jump like him. And they had a big stiff center. He was 7'4", but that didn't make a difference to Walton. Walton was still getting his. And then he goes to Portland, and as I mentioned, the only championship they ever won. It was a really, really good team. Jack Ramsey was the right guy for him. And then the injury started to bother him. Then he gets traded to the Clippers, and we all know what happens when you go there. And then the Boston Celtics pick him up, and his career was revived, and he was on a really good team in Boston. He was coming off the bench, but they had some really good players. When you think about Bird, McHale, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson, they were stacked, and he was part of that. And as you mentioned, the broadcasting thing has just been something that's been a hoot to watch for a guy who at one point didn't talk to the media.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't. Not that he didn't want to, he just couldn't.
Yeah, to be able to have the career he did in broadcasting afterwards kind of shows the work that he put into that in the end. So he wanted to be good at it. He wanted to make a second career out of it, and he did. Celtics sweep last night over the Pacers. They end that series. The Mavs have a chance to sweep tonight on the Timberwolves.
I gotta tell you something, man. I kind of know this basketball a little bit. I couldn't have been more wrong about both of these teams. I own this one because I really thought Minnesota was going to give Dallas all they can handle. Now, I think what we've learned,
they just run out of it.
them,
I mean, did they just go in 7 the series before, and being a young team that I don't think many people expected to see them as NBA finalists this year? They kind of went as far as they could go this year, and it's a case of regroup and be better next year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think when you have guys, this is the most basketball they've ever played. If you think about Anthony Edwards, he was playing FIBA before the season started. So you take that into account, and that took up a summer. Then he goes into his season. Now it's postseason. This is a lot of basketball. So I think that they're going to learn from it. I don't think there's any doubt because they have some really good players. And I think we saw that with Boston a couple of years ago where they kind of hit the wall with all those young guys they had on that team with Tatum and some of the other players. I think you have to lose one of these things in order to be able to win it. And I think we've seen both of the teams who ended up on the short end of the stick not just having enough. Now, Siakam was a veteran. He did all he could do. But I think there were some other younger guys on that team that really hadn't gone through this. And, they'll be better for it. I don't think any of these teams are going to go away. They'll be back, and they'll be better at it.
If the Mavs win tonight, both series will be over. The NBA Finals doesn't start until June 6th. The NBA has
advantage Boston because they'll have Porzingis back.
But just as far, the NBA, that's a week of not being on TV after being on your TV for the past 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's a good point you make. And the awards, they've already been handed out. I think what they have to do, they need to lean heavily on Caitlin Clark and the WNBA for a few days.
That's that's something that I didn't consider. That's a week. Yeah, they could just promote the hell out of the WNBA for those 7 days and
get a couple of her games on TV and really just oversaturate the market with promos about the finals coming up. Now, one of the things I'm going to give ABC credit for, their openings in the past for the NBA finals, going back into history and showing all these great players from yesteryear, is what's made this league. And they're going to have to be really creative here because they're going to have some time on their hands, and they got to figure out how to fill it where they don't lose that oomph to baseball or hockey. And granted, they're separate sports. They have separate fans. Mm-hmm. But, there's so many other things that are available to people to do now that has nothing to do with basketball. So you don't want to have them take their eye off for too long.
And, they're going to have, if the Mavs do end up sweeping or just at least winning the series, you have two franchises that have some star power behind them.
Yes, they do.
So you could easily tie in something with Bird and Dirk and get those two together in the next week and make something with the two of them.
Oh, I think you make a good point. I think you have to be creative, and that's another creative idea that they certainly need to run up the flagpole.
You look at who Dirk reminded you the most of, and everybody's first thing was Bird. So you have a chance to put the two of them together. You got to do it. NBA, we talked about it last week. You weren't sure that it was going to be the end of NBA on TNT and Inside the NBA. It was confirmed this weekend that it is.
Who confirmed it?
It's been confirmed. Charles Barkley confirmed it.
No, he didn't. He just said he's disappointed in how it's being handled. And the reason why I say that is because Adam Silver said, I think on Saturday, that, this thing has not been decided yet. And he didn't go overboard about it, because I'm told that, there's been one final play in place here. But, I know NBC has reached out to John Tesh and some other people to make sure that they have their thing going, because the other element that's come about is it was suggested to Charles Barkley that maybe his production company take the whole thing and sell it to whomever. And what I think is important here, it's not just that crew. You got a Kevin Harlan, you got a Brian Anderson, you got some really good play-by-play guys that are going to go to one of these networks and do a good job. But here's the key for the NBA show, the Insider Show. You better take that staff with you too, because that staff has had as much to do with the success as the individuals on camera. So when you do it, gobble the whole thing up, pay the guys. You can get it sold. That's not going to be a problem when you sell it to whatever network you think can give you the best bang for your buck.
The one point that I saw brought up was, if this is the end of Inside the NBA and the NBA on TNT, what does that do for Charles Barkley during March Madness?
Who cares?
He was, he was just as good doing the stuff with Clark Kellogg and the guys in the March Madness studios as he was doing the stuff on TNT.
So that validates my point about his production company taking it. Yeah. So now he's not aligned with a network. He has he can go do whatever he wants to do with whomever.
And how much longer does he want to work, though?
I don't know.
The money's going to be good, though. So
it's going to be real good.
Yeah.
And, some guys still like making it, and he's one of them.
We will talk. We'll preview the NBA Finals next week on the show, because there's a lot of time between now and the start of the June 6th when that all tips off. We'll take our final break here of the show, wrap things up. After this, it's lunch with Claibs and Joe right here on Claibs Online.
Rep your squad like it's only one squad. Rep your squad like it's only one squad. Rep your squad like it's only one squad. Like it's only one squad. It's only one squad.
We go, beast mode, get dough, ain't no cheat code. Big dog, cheat code, free smoke. Game time, we score, we go. Everybody go, rep your squad like it's only one squad. Rep your squad like it's only one squad. Rep your squad like it's only one squad. Rep your squad like it's only one squad.
And of course, the Cardinals did debut those new City Connect jerseys on Saturday of this weekend. It was supposed to be Friday night, but after the rain out, they had them on Saturday. So, Claibs, you got to see them up close and personal.
I love them. I got one.
I saw that. I saw you wearing it. Yeah. I think fans, if anybody that wants to complain about it, the Toronto Blue Jays City Connects just leaked. Go look at those.
I haven't seen them. Are they that bad?
They're real bad. I'll try to see if I can get a picture up of them, Claibs, but it's one of those where be happy that the Cardinals have what they have, because it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, and you know what? I know it's really subjective here. I don't really care about my team's jersey, and just I'm glad that it looks presentable. And I was having this conversation with Bill III that night that they unveiled them, and I just said, man, I'm just glad you guys didn't go with the red pants. And he said, what do you want to do? Look like a women's college softball team?
One night every other week? Yeah.
No.
What did he say about the red pants?
He said it had come up. And I said, well, I'm thankful that it was shot down. I like the red stripe, though. I like the stripe on the pants.
It looks clean. It looks very clean. Here's what the Toronto Blue Jays City Connect looks like.
Oh, you know what? It's not a bad look, with the exception of the black. Surely they could have found another color, but black and blue doesn't work there to me.
The old school Blue Jays jerseys, the black that had Jays across the front, like think the Vernon Wells days when they had those, but they wore those with white pants too.
Yeah,
those look good then. Yeah, with just the J logo on the hat, those look good. I don't like the city skyline on it, the way that looks.
It's the city jersey. What do you want to have, a farmland in the background?
You put a big maple leaf on it. I don't know.
I think somebody's already used that.
Okay, and it's it's Toronto. It's their thing.
And if you ever see their city skyline, you would say, okay, I get it.
Yeah. So that one's not a good look though. That one's
I don't
Cleveland's
like
has
the
been
color
okay.
combination.
Cleveland, they just started wearing theirs. I like Cleveland's. So there's a few good ones out there. The Cardinals got lucky with how theirs looks.
Well, I don't know whether it's luck. I just think that they really put some effort into it, and we all agreed. I think the one thing that really stands out is the fact that they didn't get rid of the birds on the bat.
Right.
I think that's where the starting point was on the jersey. The Lou, okay, that's fine. I get it. I thought there's a richer red to me as well. So there are a lot of good things about the jersey. And what are we wearing it 20 times this year? So
that many they're going to wear
yeah, I
them?
believe so.
Okay. Hockey, Claibs, it's 2-1. Both series. Stars up on the Oilers 2-1. Rangers up on the Panthers 2-1. What have you liked out of what you've seen for the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals?
Really tough battles. That Ranger Panther series, I remember telling you during the season, I watched the Rangers and the Panthers one night. It was the best hockey game I'd seen all year and still might be. And they have picked up where they left off. It's very physical. Both teams can roll 4 lines. Goaltending has been terrific. But the thing is, the star players like Kachuk, Panarin has been invisible for New York. If those guys can do something, then it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. Now, the other problem the Rangers have, they can't score on a power play.
Yeah.
And until they figure out how to do that, they're going to be working from a disadvantage. But I still like Florida to get to the finals. On the other side, I like Edmonton. I just want to see Connor McDavid continue to play. Watching he and Leon Draisaitl is really fun to watch. Dallas is a little bit more team structured. You have some guys you don't really know a lot about. I mean, you got Robertson and Jamie Benn and some guys like that, a different makeup, but they're one of the few teams that can skate with Edmonton. So I'm still taking the Oilers. I still like what they're able to do, and we'll see what happens.
Claves, I want to wrap up today's show. Have you seen the story of the Birmingham Southern College baseball team?
Is this the ones playing in the dark?
No, it was. So they're not about to exist. So
no, yeah, I did see that where they won.
So they are going. They won.
He stole home, didn't he?
No. So they won their super regional. They won this Division III College World Series super regional to advance to the World Series, the Division III College World Series. As of May 31st, the school completely shutting down.
Right.
So they will be playing in the World Series for a school that ceases to exist come June 1st. So as crazy as that is, when they won their game the other day, 9 of their guys woke up with food poisoning. 2 of them were in the hospital watching the game from the hospital as they won their super regional. The ace of their staff is Drake LaRoche. That name ring a bell for you?
There was a couple of LaRoches that played in baseball.
It's Adam LaRoche's son. The kid, the reason why he retired from baseball because the White Sox wouldn't allow him in the clubhouse anymore.
Right. Oh, man, That was a while ago.
So this kid's now the ace of the staff of this team, too.
Well, good for him.
That's how long ago it was when he was just, a 10-year-old kid trying to hang out in the locker room, and they were like, no, that's enough. I think it was Chris Sale that's kind of just put an end to that, wasn't it?
Well, you know what? There's a time and place for that. I kind of understood why that took place. Sparky Anderson used to have a rule where, and Eduardo Perez and I were talking about this Sunday, kids could come in the clubhouse if you won. If you lost, then you wait outside with everybody else.
I remember him. He told that story on the when we had him on with Joe West too. That he was just saying like him, Griffey, all the kids from the Big Red Machine would just run around. That was that Riverfront. Riverfront was Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they would just run around the halls of that, and I remember him talking about how Sparky Anderson was like, nope, you're not the guy you want to see after you lose a game.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, you know what? Now they have playroom areas for kids at these ballparks where they can kind of, work off that sugar high and get worn down playing around little play areas. Family rooms is what they call them. So, I've always been one of those who work and home should be separate. Like I've been on team flights where it was almost like a daycare center. And for those who don't bring their families with them, it's a little bit of a distraction. It can be. And, it's everybody does it differently. Everybody views where their family role is with regard to their career differently. I don't know if there's a wrong answer, although I think there comes a point where as long as your family lifestyle doesn't affect mine, then we'll be okay. But it just depends on the team as well.
Claibs, as we wrap up the show today, just want to go ahead and wish you congratulations ahead of time for Friday as you go into the Missouri Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Very much looking forward to being out there and celebrating with you this weekend out at the on the Lake of the Ozarks.
Well, thank you. A lot of people are responsible for me being part of this event, and you're one of them. And I'm looking forward to it. I got an interesting collection of people who are scheduled to show up, and some of them won't be there because of the Whitey Herzog Memorial Service, and I understand. And we'll do something here locally at some point. But the ones who are there and the ones who are there in spirit, that'll be a good start to what's going to be a great weekend.
Whatever group text you sent out earlier, Claibs, I only had about 5 of those numbers in my phone, so I don't know who the hell is invited to this
You
thing.
just never know who's going to show up.
I guess I'll find out on
never know.
Friday. Until then, Bob Ramsey and I are coming your way in just a few minutes with Daily Cards Live. Cardinals 5:40 tonight in Cincinnati for game 2 of 3 in that series. So be on the lookout for that wherever you, if you watch the podcast or if you're listening to it, if you're listening to us on the Claibs Online podcast feed, you could see that show up there as well. Until then, he is Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. This has been Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganast St. Louis Acura.
Let me get this straight. Gray Bar is a distributor?
Yep. For more than 150 years, we supported electrical and datacom projects all over the country.
So you can get me products wherever and whenever I need them?
Yep. Thanks to our expansive national logistics network.
For any industry?
Yep. From construction sites and industrial plants to schools, hospitals, and just about everything in between.
So you could say Gray Bar is much more than a distributor.
Yep, you could say that.
They really do it all.
Yep. When you need a hand powering, connecting, or maintaining your operations, join the thousands of professionals who rely on Gray Bar to help keep them up and running. Yep, Gray Bar does that.